I had to completely redefine success. I think I saw success very linearly before, and I was really had a strong hold on outcome goals instead of process goals.
We're all competitive people. It's so interesting learning to balance that, wanting to not have any outcome goals or expectations on yourself while also like wanting to be competitive,
One thing I try to always remind myself, I want to show up to this race and, podium or win or whatever, success means for me there. But even if the race is a failure, that period of my life is still incredible.
Yo.
Hey, welcome to another episode of BeRad The Podcast. I am your host, Kat.
Hey, what's up? I'm Carson. I produce the show and I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, number one fan.
Number one fan.
On this episode, we have Courtney Barnes and Erin Clark, two athletes that have come from a track and field background and now are taking the trails by storm. I loved this episode because all three of us came from that NCAA track and field background, and we talked about how the team atmosphere that's ingrained in track and field could be so impactful on the trails. I would love to see the sport go that way, where sponsors are supporting a team that's run by one coach. I think it could really elevate the sport and, bring in just like a whole new type of runner. We could get all these young college athletes on the trails instead of going to the track. It's just another cool option.
Yep, three pretty hardcore ladies, all awesome. Nice work. Boom.
Boom.
I did learn a lot, so go ahead and check it. Whoa! Pounding, what is that? What
Woo!
You got there?
Delta G Health.
Delta G. Wow, you really love those things, huh?
Mm-hmm. I was noticing I was feeling a little slow, so I needed a little pick-me-up before my meetings later.
Nice. Thank you, Delta G. Keeping my wife sharp.
Yeah, keeping me sharp.
Keeping me sharp, too, sometimes. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
You love them, though, huh?
Love them more and more. I've been taking them almost every day, at least one.
Awesome.
Thanks for sponsoring another episode of the podcast, Delta G. Check out your ketones and the ketone quiz using the link in the show notes.
Cool. Thanks, Delta G.
G.
Enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Well, welcome to the BeRad Podcast. I've got Courtney Barnes and Erin Clark in a surprise way. Thanks for coming on, you guys.
Yeah, super stoked to be here.
Yeah, we were just talking about the last time we were all three together when we were in Mexico. You guys raced 100K and I raced a 100-miler, which I should have done the 100K, but I'm a total fool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a wild experience.
Yeah. You were coming off CCC. I'm not sure what you did last year. But
just trained for my first 100K.
Yeah.
I won a 100K to debut on. We talked about that.
Oh, that was your debut.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think I'll ever run another one. It's because it's so scarring.
I know. Honestly, they're not all that bad, but I would probably retire if that was. I thought about retiring.
Literally,
after 100.
yes.
Yeah, it took me 37 hours. You guys 13 or something. That's crazy. That's so wild.
Mm.
Well, how you feeling for your race tomorrow, Courtney?
Yeah, I'm really excited.
What are you doing?
I am racing the sound running professional cross-country team race. There's a lot of pieces to that, but essentially it's a pro race where we race as teams. It's an 8K and it's cross-country, so kind of grass loops. It's a very exposed course, so lots of spectators and lots of opportunity to see where you're at in the race. So
yeah,
I'm really excited. I haven't raced cross country in 6 years, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on the track professionally and then kind of did a stint on the trails. And now I'm just taking advantage of all these different opportunities of running.
Yeah.
So
how'd you end up back in a cross country team?
Oh my gosh, this is a really long story, but
good. We got time.
Yeah, so like I had mentioned, actually Erin and I know each other because we met running professionally in Flagstaff in 2018.
For what team?
Erin was officially on NAZ Elite and I was training with the team. I wasn't officially on it, but we were training partners there.
Nice.
And that's how we met. And so I raced on the track from 2018 to 2021-ish, and then took a few years to race on the trails, which one of my first trail races you were in.
Yeah.
In Phoenix.
That's right.
Yeah. So that was in my transition period, and I had gotten burnt out from the track and that scene and just took advantage of, I guess, the pandemic times and just kind of jumped ship to the mountains. And then I did this blitz style racing where I'm like, okay, I'll do a Phoenix short race and then train for 100K and then do a Trans-Rocky stage race, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's right. I saw you were racing so much.
Yeah, just random events like from, 5K to 100K. I just wanted to get a taste of the trail world. It's a really hard world to break into, to know what you're good at, your strengths.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story long, I kind of got to do a lot of those opportunities and have a lot of awesome trail experience and ended up, I'm currently still on a trail contract with Under Armour. However, earlier this year, I got this little kind of devil on my shoulder that was like, well, you never actually went to the Olympic trials. In 2020, when it got pushed out a year, I had qualified at the time, but then I was transitioning to the trails and I just was so over track, so I didn't want to go. And so I don't regret that decision, but I do want to try to go have that experience.
Yeah.
It is an experience that I think would be really awesome to have in my running kind of tool set. And so over the course of this year, I've kind of put the pieces in order to create a stint for me to go back and chase that goal of just being at the Olympic trials on the track.
Yeah.
So I've actually haven't even publicly announced this at all. But here I am, I guess, publicly announcing it. Because so many people care what I do. But so I was linked up got a new coach kind of on a new team remotely. They're based in Baltimore, but I'm on California training and I'm taking advantage of some opportunities to go train with them, race with them, such as this event. So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at.
How'd you get linked up with the new coach?
Yeah, that's another can of worms too. So I had some, I'd say, harder coaching experiences in my past, especially in the professional track world, just not, I think, believing and trusting in a coach enough to have confidence in myself. And there are some other things that could play a part of that. But so I had been self-coached up until this year when I, went to the trails. I was just I'm going to do my own thing. And then once I was 100% or almost borderline 100% set on this goal of going after the trials, I knew I couldn't do it on my own. I knew I wouldn't have the motivation to wake up and do these types of workouts in this type of intensity and get out for a double and whatever the track workout structure looks like. I didn't have that in me to do on my own. And so I had talked to the Under Armour sports marketing team about, this opportunity. And they had mentioned a name. And the name who they had mentioned was Laura Rogers, who I was thinking of also seeking out. And so it kind of just naturally fell together. And Laura actually works for Under Armour. She's the pro women's coach based in Baltimore.
Cool.
She's worked with them for the last year and a half. And we had a chance to meet last year and I immediately clicked with her. And I just felt, for some reason, her name was kind of in my sphere of what I was tossing around for coaching options.
Yeah.
And so I hopped on a few phone calls, got it kind of all approved in Under Armour, and now here we are.
How is remote track coach? My background's also track. And a huge part of it is the team and training with the team. I can't even imagine training for anything on the track by myself.
Yeah, 100%. We were actually just talking about that, Erin and I, because something that we both miss about not being in Flagstaff anymore is having that built-in team everywhere you go. You knew on a Sunday morning you're going to be running a long run with not only your teammates, but your team, all these other teammates. And so, that's a really good question. I think I had to, when I talk about putting the pieces in place to go after this goal, that was one of the biggest things that I needed to work out because I'm such a team player and I'm so motivated by team. I'm not, like I have already alluded to, motivated by myself so much, but if I'm part of something, then I'm I got to do it because they're also doing it. Mm-hmm. So I had to work out kind of a system in place, and it's still a work in progress, but to have a team that's locally in Santa Barbara, that's team, people that I know can hold me accountable, that can help pace me, that can show up, have good attitude, and that I can also bring something to them, But then also juggling that with stints to go and race with my team, train with my team. I went earlier this year to a team camp that we held in Raleigh. and then traveled up to Baltimore and got to be, you know, with the home base there for a week or so. And so that was really nice. I came off that super motivated and just like feeling that accountability, even though it was remote.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really hard thing to juggle, but I feel like if you have the right players in the right place,
Totally.
it can work, but it's not easy.
Yeah. And especially like the relationship with your teammates is, I'm sure, different because sometimes you're there and sometimes you're not. Like you guys are close friends because we're teammates,
right?
You know, and you miss a lot of those miles.
Yeah, totally. And so I definitely have to like check in on my remote teammates.
Yeah, do you?
Yeah, I do. I'm like, how is that K workout? We're doing all the same workouts, but they're doing on the East Coast and I'm doing on the West Coast and whatever. And yeah, so it is good to, you know, touch base with my coach and she's like, we're gonna do half of these on grass, half of these on the track. And so then I do the exact same thing, just, you know,
like 6 hours apart.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely.
Awesome. And Erin, I just remembered, I think you reached out to me like maybe in 2020 when you were thinking about transitioning to the trails. And I just put it together not that long ago that it was you and you were looking about how to, you were like asking about how to, talk to brands and stuff. And we chatted a little bit about that. And then since you've exploded, you've had just such a good couple years.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's so funny. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, I feel like, excuse me, early on, there was like a couple trail athletes I had followed when I was kind of interested in getting into trail. And I think I knew about Western States. And so I knew about you. And I think you had maybe recently signed with Brooks, I want to say, or something. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this brand's like new in the trail scene. Like maybe I should reach out to them, like reach out to some other people. Yeah, because I feel like when you're coming from a different world, it's like really hard to know like where to head within that. But yeah, it's very kind of you to say, like exploded. It definitely doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like I'm chipping away and I really want to get to that top level, but I don't feel like I've really made it yet.
It's hard coming off an injury. Like, you know, I'm in the same boat. We've taken the same amount of time off this year. It's hard.
Yeah, totally. I think Courtney can attest to this, but honestly, a lot of my running career has been high highs, low lows, kind of a lot of up and downs. So hoping to just like kind of nail down some more of that consistency and just like trusting and believing that if I'm able to do that, that like the results will really follow. But it's tricky because you always want to race. You always want to do the next big thing. And
yeah, totally. Especially when your partner is also a professional trail runner who's luckily had lows alongside you this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he gives you some pretty big goals to chase after, living in the same house with, you know, that cougar sitting there on the counter, just kind of always looking at it. He had a big injury this year, which was super challenging. I mean, I think honestly, it was probably harder having both of us injured at the same time.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was kind of a dark few weeks there. And just kind of, I think a lot of it was like being in that place where you're hurting and you want to like kind of lean on someone else, but they're kind of also in that space. And so how do you balance that and be there for someone else when you kind of like are grouchy and you're not really thinking about anyone but yourself because you're like pissed, you know?
Yeah. What was your injury?
I messed up my Achilles pretty good just before CCC this year, and so I've been kind of dealing with coming back from that.
And then you attempted CCC still with a messed up Achilles.
Yeah, I mean, I like heard it maybe a week to 10 days out from the race, and by that point, you know, I'd been over in Europe for 2 weeks already, and so I figured, you know, I might as well give it a shot. I'm all the way over here, and it went probably as I could have expected, which was not well.
Yeah, I did the same thing last year. I like got hurt. I mean, it was all stemmed from my hip, but I also, because of the hip, most likely took a super gnarly fall. And on my knee last year, and literally my last long run before CCC, which was 10 days out, I did like 17 miles. I was limping back, like full on, like couldn't walk for a little bit. Carson was like, "Can I carry you?" I'm like, no, I'm fine. It's fine. Still started CCC like a total buffoon. You know, obviously dropped very early, you know, in a dramatic fashion. But it's tough when you like go all the way out there. It makes it especially hard.
For sure, yeah. I mean, and I don't really regret, like, giving it a shot. I think, like, sometimes you never know, you know? And, like, there's a possibility, I think, could have gotten out there and it could have felt okay, and maybe I could have managed a decent result. Honestly, I think one of the bigger pieces for me was just like I really, really allowed that like physical injury to affect my mentality and just get me like so stressed out to the point where even had I felt physically okay, I don't think I would have been able to race okay, because I had been like just such a like mental nightmare like all week. So yeah, learning experience.
Yeah, that's so tough. What would you change?
I mean, I think the first like obvious thing is just like more the nitty gritty. Like I did just like went over there and did way too much vert, like classic rookie mistake, you know, like the year before when I did well, I got there maybe 9 days out of the race. So the work was done. But this year I was over there much earlier, and made the mistake of doing too much. And so that's what got me hurt. And then, I just think, I don't know, I feel like I just maybe didn't have the mental tools to handle the injury and the pressure I was putting on myself, and kind of let that spiral. And so I've been like working with like a sports psych now and trying to kind of get some more of those tools. So hopefully this doesn't happen again, but if it does, hopefully I'll be able to handle the mental piece better, and like, you know, potentially be able to race through whatever the physical thing is.
Have you noticed a difference working with the sports psych so far?
It's pretty early on, so I enjoy it, but I don't know that I've really noticed a huge difference yet, just because still coming back from this injury. I mean, I've been doing nothing but like easy miles and like easy cross training for the most part. And so I don't feel like I have gotten the chance to like really like flex that muscle, and push myself like in those ways. And so, I think time will tell, but I'm positive about it. I'm hopeful. I worked with a sports psych for a little while in college, and it was like super duper impactful for me. So
that's so good. I have worked with a sports psych in stints, but I feel like I never actually did the work. You know, I feel like I was like, oh, whatever. Same thing, like in college for a little bit. And then after Western for a little bit, and then recently for a little bit, and then I got injured and I stopped, which is the worst time to stop. But I asked, you know, for selfish reasons, because, you know, part of me is like, it's a bunch of bullshit. But I know that so many people have amazing results from it. I know that's not true. I think it's just hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky. I mean, it's an investment too financially. But I just think like a lot of my best races has been when my head is in the right spot. And I think many people can say that. I think you can outrun your fitness sometimes when you're in like a really, really excited, positive headspace. So
totally.
Yeah.
So how'd you get into the trails?
Yeah. I left Flagstaff shortly before Courtney did, I think.
How come?
I really struggled with injuries when I was at NAZ Elite. I loved racing on the track and on the roads. And I liked the team and everything, but I just had a ton of injury issues, and the last of which drag on for almost 6 months by the time I left the team, and it wasn't any better than it was when I got hurt. It kind of just did this weird thing to my back, and I was newer to Flagstaff, and so I didn't, I feel like, have like a super awesome community around me. And so I kind of, once I wasn't running, I didn't have like even that like social outlet as well. So I think it just kind of like, I was in a low spot and kind of was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I need to leave. I need to be done with this. Like I kind of was like, I gave pro running my shot, and I was a great college athlete, and like maybe I just didn't really have what it took at the next level. So I left, moved to Missoula, which is where my boyfriend Adam was living. We are still there. And Missoula has a really big trail scene, and I never really intended to get into trails. I was honestly like started grad school and was going to be a hobby jogger. Like I was running like 20 minutes with my dog, like really. And there's a good 6 months period there where I didn't do much. And eventually I started getting fitter and healthy, and I wanted a new challenge. So I signed up for a 50K because it was a different challenge. I didn't want to try to get fast in the 10K again because I didn't feel like I could get to where I was.
And also it's like so hard mentally and physically, and on the body, it's just hard.
Yeah, I think for me, there was just a lot of comparison to where I used to be. And so that wasn't motivating to me to be doing that type of work. But I could set a distance PR. I could run 20 miles, and I'd never run 20 miles before. So I think that piece really dragged me in, and I did a 50K and loved it. And signed up for 100K 6 months later.
What was the first 100K for you?
Bandera.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in 2021. And that went really, really well. And I was like totally hooked.
Yeah, awesome. So we were talking before about how something that's lacking in the trail world right now is teammates. I actually pitched a couple times to different coaches and different brands. Like, I want to start a trail team, like, for the love of God, like, give me money so we can work under one coach and have similar workouts, even if we don't race. Do you guys see that coming?
Yeah, I mean, we see it a little bit with what Andy and Carly have done.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's really awesome. I was talking to them about it earlier this year about, I mean, their presence right now in Boulder is mostly like women.
Yeah.
But they all show up for workouts and they make each other better. And they have like lots of different runners from all different stages. I think they have Katie Foley now.
Yeah.
Who was a previous track stud, and lots of girls right out of college.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the value of team is so invaluable. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be really, really cool. I would definitely love to see it in trail. I think it's definitely going to have to come, I think, from a brand, because I think we can try to kind of do it in that grassroots way. But I mean, a lot of us are either, have different coaches or a self-coach or like just different schedules. And so it's pretty challenging. I know for me, just like trying to make schedules work with other people in Missoula. Like I do as much as I can.
Do you train mostly alone?
It's hit and miss. I think I try to run with people. Jen Lichter is an incredible athlete for North Face. Recently moved to town, or maybe in the last year, not that recently. But it's awesome to link up with her when I can. But I just feel like our schedules like have been so off and on, and then, there's like some ladies and some guys I'll run with here and there, but there's nothing quite like we're a team. We have 9 a.m. practice every day, and like we know we're like 4 of us are doing the same workout. I think it'd be a really cool thing to see.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, like the difficulty with that too, comes from the lack of financial support with trail athletes though.
Yeah.
Like the professional track groups are able to do it because it's their 9 to 5.
I know.
They are paid enough.
I know.
So that they don't have to clock in at 8. Like the people that I consider my teammates in Santa Barbara are all people working 8 to 5, 9 to 5 jobs.
Yeah.
And so I'll meet them 6 a.m., 6 p.m., whatever. But yeah, and like it's so limited to create. How can you gather that many high quality trail athletes when no one's even making enough to live?
Very few. And it's getting better slowly, but it's true. And it's this interesting dichotomy of, athletes need to ask brands to invest in them first, because we're seeing it. I don't know if you know this, but no women in the top 10 this year at UTMB had a full-time job or another job, period. Like they were like maybe some coach on the side, but it's getting so competitive that, and I think the stats were similar at Western. And I think it's been like that in the men's scene for a long time. But it's getting to the point where even like my coaching on the side is really, really impacting my runs, because it is a full-time job. Like the industry standards, an hour a week per athlete, I probably do a little bit more, working 40 hours a week, coaching, taking meetings, and it's just like too much. But we don't, and brands are asking athletes to invest the same amount of time as to yield the performances that would require it to be a 9 to 5 job running, but the financial support's not there. So it's really tricky. And so I think it's going to be, it's going to be on brands to see the potential there. And it's going to be on athletes to be like, hey, invest in me, invest first.
Yeah, for sure. Or somebody taking initiative of, having that brand connection of like, hey, we're going to get a group here. Like, could you jump in and help us? But again, the places where trail running training is its best are also the most expensive places in the world to live usually. And so.
Well, I think you mentioned something really interesting about your remote coaching where you do camps sometimes and you do because that's the other element is we're not always racing the same thing, but we can do camps around certain races. I think it'd be cool to have a trail team, even if we don't live in the same place, And then where we do similar workouts most of the year, maybe they're a little bit, but just having that camaraderie still, then doing like maybe winter training camps, you know, around the time of like peak training of everyone else's races, or like, you know, just like base training and altitude or something.
Yeah. Because you get more than just that stint.
Yeah, totally. And it's consistent.
For me, it was a lot of, okay, I'm going to work my butt off so I can get to that fitness level so that when I'm there, I can crush with them.
Exactly.
So you have that, and then you come off of that and you're motivated. You're like, oh my gosh, okay, yeah.
I did it.
Yeah. So it's more than like 2 weeks. It's really, Yeah.
And it's, you know, whether you're in the camp or not, having, like you said, like, but before we were chatting, like you're texting your teammates and you're like, how is that 1K workout? Or like, how is that like, you know, threshold workout, you know, for a trail or whatever. And it like having it be, you know, that team atmosphere, even if it's remote, and coached under the same person, even if it's remote. I think there's something there.
I think we also need a diversity of running coaches in the trail world too.
Oh my God, totally. We totally do.
Yeah.
Which I saw you just started working with David Roach. How's that been so far?
I'm working with Megan, but
cool.
Yeah, not exactly adding to diversity in the coaching space in trail, but it's been really good. We got connected through like a mutual connection in Missoula, a guy I really trust, and it was just kind of like, I think this would be like a good opportunity.
Who was it,
for
out of
you.
curiosity?
It's a PT I work with in town.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, he's awesome. But anyways, I think I just like really, with a lot of the injuries I've had and things like that, I wanted, you know, some more accountability and like, just like more structure with that, and like someone to kind of pull the reins a little bit. And
have you been self-coached in the past?
Yes and no. I started out that way. And then I was working with a local coach, and he's great. We're good friends. Alpine running guides. Okay. I actually do some coaching for them too. But, I think because we were such good friends, like it was like I was kind of half self-coached, and like I would like decide what I was doing oftentimes. And I think maybe sometimes he maybe wasn't willing to be like, hey, you shouldn't do that, or like that's too much, or I wasn't willing to listen, you know. I think the friendship kind of maybe got in the way of some of that. And
yeah, totally.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should start a team. I would love that, honestly. I've been pushing for a team forever. Yeah. I've been really I've been like talking to brands about it, been talking to coaches, and it just hasn't taken off yet. I talked to, in 2017, right after Western, I actually tried to get Jason Coop to coach a big team of us, and it just like, he was like, I don't have the bandwidth to like manage a team. And I was like, these are the people. And that's how Abby Hall actually started working with Coop, is because I reached out to Coop, and Abby and I were training partners at the time. We were running like every day. And I was like, let's just like make a team. Why isn't it working? And it just, you know, it takes like maybe a new coach in the industry. Yeah. And someone maybe that like has experience on the roads and track, because I personally, like, I still want to blend those two. You know, I have run one marathon, and I did it after crewing Sean O'Brien 50, like the day after. And I like actually loved it, you know, and I want to, you know, continue, you know, I qualified for the trials, but I never ran in 2020 because it was pushed back and I was so hurt. But yeah, I think it'd be cool. And I think there's like so much potential there.
Yeah, it's a ripe field right now to get into the trail coaching world, but it's hard, I think, maybe to break in. I think a lot of athletes question coaches' experience, because if you think about it, the coaches that are there have had a stronghold kind of in the sport for really, 4 or 5 years, but that's how much it's been taking off, right? So that's totally. Like, oh, your experience. Now somebody with 1 year, oh, you're not experienced, but it's going to take a lot of people to trust a lot of people.
And it takes someone, you know, for me, like if I'm looking at a coach, like I don't really want to work with a coach who's never worked with someone who's worked with other professional trail runners, because it's not just working with another athlete, you know. And some coaches might not understand the demands of like, it is like we should be treating it more like a 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
So are you full-time right now running?
No, absolutely not. No.
Okay, nice.
It's a side hustle. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll go back to full-time? Would
No,
you like
I've
to?
never been full time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've always felt like I needed something more than running to keep me balanced. So right now I work remote for a technology company out of San Francisco, and I love it. It offers me a really great work-life balance. And I kind of get to burn off other energy. You know, I can put in the hard work in the morning and then running and then go to my office and just kind of do different things. And so I'm not ruminating on my workouts or what's next. You know, kind of just makes me able to turn my mind on and off.
That's pretty amazing, because I find that sometimes when I'm working a lot, and maybe it's because I'm working solely in the industry, that it's like I get too stressed, and then I show up to a start already burnt, you know, and then I can't give anything.
Yeah, I think it does take a certain type of job, certain type of company to work for that really values like that work-life balance.
Yeah.
So that's something that you can gel with. Because if I was working 50, 60 hours a week, like some other people in this industry, like I don't think I could, but
yeah. Do you think there'll ever be a point where you do go full-time if the opportunity comes, or?
I don't know. I don't ever see myself doing that. I don't know why. I just feel like I love like putting time and effort in other things. And for some reason, for like to me, stopping that and just running, I would put way too much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't perform well, because for me, like I have to rein in expectations and pressure. And once I can lower the expectations, lower the pressure, I'll perform well.
Yeah.
But when I was even in Flagstaff as a grad student at NAU and training with professional teams, that was still even erring more on the side of like high expectations, high pressure, because you're in that high pressure environment.
Yeah.
And so for me, leaving Flagstaff to go to somewhere like Santa Barbara, where there's not really an elite running community or scene at all, was a really big, ultimately beneficial switch, but it did, you know, really ask for a lot of recalibrating.
Yeah, I know. I kind of remember you going through that on Strava, funny enough. You're kind of like open about it on Twitter, you know, so it was super interesting watching that trend, because I think I met you right before you moved, or right around the time. I mean, Santa Barbara is such a good place to train for literally everything, even if there's not an elite running crowd.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I ended up actually completely quitting running.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
I remember.
Erin knows. I didn't run for 8 months. Yeah,
nice,
I got
not
into
a
yoga.
step, really.
Like literally, no.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So.
How's that?
It was probably the best thing for my running journey long term. So like I said, it was really a reflection of having to recalibrate the mind and body from this high pressure, high expectation environment of Flagstaff. Like everyone's a high performer. Everyone's Olympian. You're bumpy shoulders with them. And through that, you do get better, mostly, you know, unless you fall through the cracks and it's like really hard. But like it was time for my husband and I to move on, and he had gotten a job in Santa Barbara. And so we both graduated with our grad degrees. And so we were, you know, kind of going into the adult world. And I got out there and I no longer had the team. I no longer had the physio. I no longer had the coach in person. I no longer was this pampered professional runner, really. And I think I just had to face reality. And I remember I raced like the like Spartan US Trail Champs or something in Fayetteville that year. And I did very well in that race. And I remember finishing that race, waking up the next morning, and I just said, I'm done. I'm not going to run anymore. Like, I'm literally retiring. And people were like, oh, you'll come back to it. And I'm like, no, I literally won't. And like, as the months went on, you know, 6 months, 7 months, people were like, wow, you actually aren't running. I'm like, no, I'm not. Crazy enough, what actually got me back into it was going and crewing Adam, Erin's boyfriend, at Canyons 100K that like next year.
Wow.
Yeah.
What made you want to get back into it?
I remember driving up there to crew them, me and my dog driving up. It was like, I remember even just throwing myself under the bus at so many moments, because it was like, I'm not a runner anymore. I feel so out of place. But through that weekend at Canyons and getting able to see Adam, where Adam really came out of the woodwork there. I mean, like we knew he was due for a race like that, but to see that and be a part of it and to see the people around the race, in the race, I was driving back alone, and it was one of those drives where like turn off the music, turn off everything, and you're just like staring out a road and you're like all in your thoughts. And on that like 5-hour drive, I was like, something in my heart feels like I'm like missing something.
Yeah.
And something about this weekend is making me realize that. And it was completely the community. Like I had missed being around that community of people and events like that. And I didn't want to continue without that. And so I think after that time, I really had to think about, what does running look like in my life? What do I like about it? What joy does it bring? And how can it fit into my life without leading again to this like horrible burnout cycle that I got into?
Yeah. And what does it look like now?
Yeah. So I think for me, I had to completely redefine success. I think I saw success very linearly before, and I was really had a strong hold on outcome goals instead of process goals. And so redefining success into saying, you know, what does success look like for me in my life with running? Okay, yeah, maybe it's not like running this time or placing this high, but maybe it is getting to experience these types of races and put myself into situations that I don't know how I'll do and come out of it feeling like I did a good job, you know, so like kind of partially lowering expectations.
Yeah.
Along like right when after I had gone and crewed Adam, I had gotten kind of a random like email from Under Armour that said, hey, we had known in the past, because I was sponsored by them before, we had known that you'd always want to do Trans Rockies. Would you want to do it this year? Like we would, you know, you'd be on the Under Armour team that we would, you know.
Wow, cool. So you like took a step back from, you weren't sponsored for that time.
Yeah.
Cool.
And they had just known, they're like kind of great close-knit family there. And they had known that I always wanted to do that. And so they just offered a spot for me. And it was weird because during that time I was processing all of this, like that had come off of this event with Adam and Erin. And then this email kind of appeared. And I was like, man, like, is this something that I want to do? It's a 6-day stage race. Like I've never done anything like that. I think I had done a 50K before, but 120 miles of racing was a lot different over 6 days camping or whatever. So I think through that process of saying yes to that, I had to each day try to work in running to my life of how it was going to look. And most of it was just going into training, racing, everything with zero expectations of I want to finish healthy. I want to enjoy the terrain, the mountains, the people, and like fully live in the experience. Like that was success for me instead of like podiuming or winning. Mm-hmm. Which is so funny because when you approach it that way and you don't have those expectations, you usually do actually have success. Yeah. So then you're like, oh, back to like, okay, do I put pressure on myself for the next one?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But then, so like, then how do you, it's so interesting because like we're all competitive people.
Right.
You know, we like part of what, and something I've come to Jesus in the last couple of years, you know, because I've had like, you know, major ups and downs also. It's the fact that like at the end of the day, I like love running, and my love for running is totally separate from my love from racing. Like I love competing and racing, and I always have. And so then how do you? It's like so interesting because part of racing is wanting to be competitive and be in the mix, and it's so interesting learning to balance that. You know, wanting to not have any outcome goals or expectations on yourself while also like wanting to be competitive, you know?
Right. Because I think before for me, I only liked the racing part. I loved the racing. I loved the success it could get me. I loved that. But I didn't love the process.
Yeah. No, once you quit.
Yeah. So once I quit, I had to relearn to actually love the easy run, the workout, the training, you know, checking off the boxes. And that's what I'm learning in this season of life, is just like consistency. And there's so much beauty and joy of showing up each day and putting in that work, because it does add up. You can't just show up to a race and expect to do well. And that's, I think, what my mindset was. It's wacky.
I know. It's so funny. I think that's not as uncommon as you'd think, especially for people who had like success at a high school level or like even younger. You know, you're told you're good at running, and so you just do what you're good at because it feels good to be good at something. At least like that's, and then it like leads to all these ups and downs because you have to almost, I was saying the other day, you almost like love winning first and then you love running. You know. now both of you you're kind of still on the track, but I'm assuming coming back to the trails.
Yeah, I'd say I'm like definitely settling into my hybridness.
Yeah, nice. I honestly
track.
love the hybridness. I hope it stays. Like, Grayson Murphy's done a really good job, and now there's some younger athletes that are coming on that are doing both, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, and Grayson was part of our OG squad in Flagstaff.
Oh, no way.
So,
that is
really,
so
You
funny.
really should have just had us three.
I know.
Telling us how, we got burnt out of Flagstaff and are all on the trails now.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of us.
So cool. I mean, that says something. It's like, I hope this sport changes a little bit because it is so intense. Like, you hear so many stories, especially in women, of just not being able to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, like, how are you, I mean, with the ups and downs, how are you coping with, the high pressure? Are you full-time running right now for the most part?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
I do a little bit of coaching on the side, and then I've been a volunteer assistant at University of Montana, working with the track and cross country team there, which has been super fun.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, running's my main income. Yeah, I mean, it can be high pressure. I mean, I definitely have really high goals. But I think one thing I try to always remind myself, and I've talked about with my partner, Adam, I don't know if he may have thought of it, I don't know. But essentially it's just that, I want to show up to this race and, podium or win or whatever, success means for me there. But even if that fails to happen, I love running, I love training, and I love what I'm doing. And so it's not like all of a sudden those past 3 months are wasted because the race didn't go the way I wanted it to. Like, I still spent those 3 months doing exactly what I would love to be doing. And so, like, even if the race is a failure, that period of my life is still incredible.
Yeah.
And so I try to remind myself that it's like, you're getting to do all these incredible things. And so that in itself is like a victory. And
yeah. Do you feel like that you do better off mostly just running full time instead of like balancing a job in the traditional sense?
Yeah, I feel like I've been trying to figure that out. When I was training in Flagstaff, I wasn't quite making enough to be solely running. And so running was my main focus, but I was doing kind of these like random, side gigs, like scooping ice cream or whatever. Yeah. And I think, and then when I first moved to Montana and got into trail running, I was a grad student as well, and doing coaching stuff. And it was a lot. And I think I got this opportunity with Nike to take running more full time. And for me, just like with a lot of the injuries I've had, it was an opportunity for me to say, okay, like, I have these extra hours in the day, and now I need to spend them like trying to keep my body healthy and like doing all these extra things. And so that's been my goal with it being full time. And I do think like it is helping, and it's easier to stay healthy when you're not like dashing between things, of course. But
totally,
obviously it's not a perfect solution because I've still had injuries.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just happens with learning too. Like, I honestly think, having a coach for you is going to be a game changer. Mm-hmm. It's for me, I think I'm a lot like you. If I'm not held back, I will overdo it every single time. I've been overtrained. I have gone the other way before where I haven't run a step for a long time, complete and utter burnout, but that's because I did way too much for like years, years and years and years. So I think that's going to help a lot. And I'm kind of with you. And I'm striving to get there. And I just like haven't raced really in 2 years. So it's hard to run full time when you really haven't raced except for that one like horrid race in Mexico. And that's pretty much all I did. And, but for me too, like I find myself just so busy all of the time, and it's hard to do the extra stuff. Like it's impossible to get enough sleep. When you are juggling like full-time work, training, PT, recovering from injury, just recovering, period. It's just like, it's not there, it's impossible.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's super challenging, and I think I'm super lucky now to get to call this like mostly my full-time gig.
Yeah.
And there's a phrase I would always repeat in my head, especially right when I first signed this contract about a year ago. And whenever I was at my house with like, some spare time, I'd be like, all right, what would a pro do? It was like, okay, a pro would like roll out. A pro would like make this really healthy meal. Like a pro would go do their PT at the gym, like even if it's a hassle, And so It's just reminding myself all the time, like do the things that like that the people that are at the top level that I'm striving to become do the things that I believe they're doing.
Yeah, totally. And that's what my agent last year, before I fixed my hip, and this was like a part of it, he was like, fix your fucking hip. Like, you're being an idiot. But he told me, one day he was like, this is your opportunity to be a pro athlete, and you're not seizing it. You're like, taking it, you're saying yes to like all the other opportunities that come with it, and are lucrative, but are also like just really take away from the thing that you're trying to do. And he was like, this is like, do you want this still? And I was like, oh shit, like he's right. Like, I haven't been doing any of that stuff because it's been too busy. So I love that. Like, would a pro do this? Because coaches have told me this over and over again throughout my career. Like, like, be professional, God damn it. I worked with Matt Fitzgerald for a little while as my coach, actually. And he used to call me the naughty pro because I like wouldn't do anything. And I'd like randomly go off grid for like 5 days and like on a van trip and forget to tell him, and he's an intense guy. I know him pretty well. Yeah. But it's so funny. So what's coming up for you?
I'm still trying to figure that out a little bit. I was hoping to run Black Canyon, but I think some of this stuff, the Achilles, is taking a little more time than I would have liked to get past. And so I'm feeling good now, but I just don't think I'm quite at a place yet where I want to dive into like, a higher volume, more focused training block. Like my body's just not quite there yet. And I want to learn from my mistakes and be, a little more cautious. And so I think probably going to wait and run canyons. I feel like canyons is a good one because you're like, there's 2 states tickets and then like 8 more tickets to CCC after that. So I'm like, if I could just finish in the top 10, like that'll be like a win and I'll get a ticket somewhere.
But the only thing is, I think this year they're not doing it. The tickets will be for 2025.
Yeah. So I'm been communicating with UTMB folks, and I think assuming my PT comes through with a like PT's note, which apparently according to him isn't even a thing, so I don't really know what their deal is over there, but I'm submitting a note to them and hopefully getting a qualification extension until June, which is super cool.
I'm trying to do the same thing. Nice. I just haven't started the process, but so hopefully. Thanks for filling me in on how to do that. I saw that I could petition to do it, but I was like, they've changed it so many times. I was like, deal with it later,
Yeah.
But that was kind of my idea too, behind canyons.
So fun fact with the whole system. So I emailed them, whatnot. They said yes. They got back to me. That was great. And they were like, just let us know, like, because I wasn't sure at that point if I was going to run canyons 50K or 100K. I think I'm doing the 100K now. But and then they were like, and provide a note from a physio. And so I said I would. And I'm talking to my PT, and he's like, did you know in Europe, like, you don't actually need any, like, medical credentials or, like, anything to call yourself a physio? He's like, whoa. So it's crazy.
Right one for yourself.
Right. And it's like, they're crazy. They're asking me for this because if I was, like, I mean, even here, or, like, if I was European, like, I get, like, my dad to sign off on this thing. It's, like, passable. So, anyways, that's kind of funny. That's so
funny because, like, I've been to physios in Europe when I've been, like, about to race and been desperate. And I went to a physio, like, with my last ditch effort at something, trying to line up, and it hasn't done anything. I've been like, do you even know what I'm... And there's a language barrier there, too, obviously, and I don't speak French, so it's my bad. But, getting... it felt like they didn't understand what I needed, even beyond like a language barrier. And so that makes sense. And it's frustrating. Yeah. I've dropped dollars.
No, it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure obviously there's incredible practitioners out there, but I think there's probably just, a little bit of a barrier to finding them, especially, if you're an American coming over and you don't really know how to tease out their system and what means what.
You're trying to get in like same day. Yeah. Also, yeah, cool. So canyons, 100K, either Western or...
Yeah, I would really like to go back to Western. Have a little giant failure unfinished business there. So it'd be fun to actually make it to Placer. But
what happened at Western?
That was... I qualified at Bandera in 2021, which was my second ultra and my first 100K. And I was like, woohoo, look at this crazy thing I got. Look at this ticket. And I was coming off of having left a prior pro running career that looked, different, and I was, totally unsponsored. Had no idea what I was doing, and I was just excited to go to Western States. I was going to take any opportunity that came towards me because I felt like I had a second chance at this. And basically I think was pretty unprepared to try and run 100 miles and just like ended up feeling just like so sick, like so horrible, dropping out at Michigan Bluff, I think, which like super early, it's still like 50 miles.
Yeah, it's literally 50 miles.
Yeah, I mean, it was my fourth ultra. I just wasn't ready. That's kind of all there was to it. But, Adam got to come out and crew, see the course. He came back next year. He won, so
that's
credit myself
amazing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, take the credit for sure.
Did he get the bug being at Western with you?
I think a little bit. And he crewed and paced me at Bandera as well.
Was he running trails at that point?
Yeah, so he got into trails before I did, but was doing kind of marathon 50K-esque distance more so. And I think he probably would have ended up in the ultras regardless. But yeah, I think he kind of got the bug shortly after that.
Yeah.
I mean, he just blew up his next year, obviously. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
How is it navigating a relationship with two very elite runners? Because that is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely got its positives and negatives. I think it's awesome, like having someone that like totally gets your sport and like you go on a trip maybe with like your family or something and we're on each other's team trying to navigate how do we get our run in today? How do we get our cross training in? Like how would we make this work for our lifestyle? But then I think you also have comparison in any sport and then you have that comparison in your house, and it's, I've told him before in somewhat of a sarcastic way, like, I would like kill to be able to win Western States. Like you have what I want. And that's really interesting when you're looking at your partner and seeing that. Like, he's one of the best in the world. Like anyone would say that. And that's what I want to be. And it's, so I think there is this like kind of interesting tension there. But I do my very best to keep my eyes in like my lane and making myself better. And it's cool to watch your partner kind of crush it.
Yeah, it's super cool. So I imagine that it'd be really hard though too, especially, with your own ups and downs. Were you healthy when he won Western?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think I was coming off of like a little bit of an injury there because I was supposed to run canyons the same year he did. I'm looking at Courtney because I'm like, do you remember?
We went on a run. Yeah, I was like, no, we went on a run the next day.
We did go on a run. So I was coming off of this knee injury. And yeah, actually that was a tough, it was incredible to watch him. Like, and then I was at every single one of his races that spring into summer. But it was hard because he went to Chuckanut and won and canyons and won and states and won, which is amazing. And I was signed up for Chuckanut and I scratched, and I was signed up for canyons and I scratched. And so for me, it was a big mental challenge to show up and be there 100% in positive supporting role and like kind of just stuff all my like frustrations about not being able to also race.
Yeah. And like, and it's hard, I'm sure, because I'm sure even if you didn't want there to be, and it's nothing that Adam did wrong, I'm sure there's like a piece of resentment there too that's like hard to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it was so exciting to be at some of those like really incredible races, and I can honestly, very, very honestly, truthfully say, like, I've never been so excited, like, seeing him get to accomplish that, but yeah, there is definitely a piece of it that's like just that yearning for your own opportunity. Not even like, I didn't think I was going to show up and also win canyons, but I wanted my opportunity to try to be among the top women there at least,
Yeah. And by the way, you're totally capable of everything that Adam has done. I think you know that also deep in your soul, which is why you're going for it. And I think that's fucking cool. So
thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a deep place of confidence, but I don't know. I always like to be someone that it's like, I don't want to talk about it until I'm able to really do it. And so, like hopefully that gets to happen in the next couple of years. And, if not, I mean, that's a bummer, but.
I'm super excited to see you go for it. It'll be so fun to run canyons with you there. Hopefully we both make it healthy for two people who have been injured a lot.
yeah. Keep knocking on this table. Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't even, have a healthy training block. My hip really started bugging in 2019, and then I just ran for years and years on it. And, it's good now. It's like, I feel like such an idiot for not fixing it earlier, but I don't completely trust it yet. You know, every time I'm doing a workout, I almost feel like I'm like holding back quite a bit, because in the faster paces is when it got really aggravated.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I think anytime you've been through a long injury like that, there is this piece in the back of your head that's like,
yeah,
you know, just
as someone who's been injured a lot, also like, how do you get over that piece?
You know, I think a lot of it, I've almost been too far the other direction, where it's like the second I feel okay, I'm like full on.
Yeah.
So I think both kind of have their difficulties, but I think a lot of it is just like keep chipping away and it comes. I think especially like early on for me, setting really, really attainable goals, especially with any type of like workout or speed, helps me. It's like, okay, I'm going to like do this tempo run, and the pace I'm going to plan to go is like 15 seconds a mile slower than I think I'm like would really be the right effort for this workout. And so it's kind of just like checking off those kind of just like really easy leaps, and eventually I think you'll find, oh shoot, like I'm where I want to be. But I think it's giving yourself the baby steps.
Yeah, it takes time. I'm actually doing that. Like literally, I'm working kind of off pace for the first time in years, and I'm the same thing. Like everything is programmed like 20 seconds per mile slower than I'm actually capable of, and that's like good, because it's allowing me to build trust in my body again. And it doesn't feel that hard is the thing. So like I finished a workout, I'm like, I don't feel like I just did a workout, you know, but I wasn't even able to run any faster paces for years. I was like shuffling 10-minute miles for like 2 years in training, and that's all I could do. I know, it was really, I'm so silly for not doing anything. Carson's over here probably shaking his head.
A mistake you make once.
What'd you say?
A mistake you make once.
I know, but for 2 years I made the mistake. Yeah. Cool. So this question, you were going to wrap up here, but I ask all of my guests at the end, because I know it's something you haven't been asked before. So what's something that you're both proud of that you maybe have never talked about before in like a running context?
All right. I'll shoot. I guess for me, I think the most challenging time getting back into running was after I left NAZ. I, had dealt with this long injury, and I was coming back, and I really had hardly run in the previous 6 months. And I was just more out of shape than I had been since I was in middle school. I mean, serious. And it was really depressing in a lot of ways. And I think I have less of a hard time comparing myself to others, but a very hard time with comparing myself to myself. And so I'm not perfect at it, and I still do that, but I've gotten a lot better. And I think like my best accomplishment in that sense that no one would know about is I was getting back into doing workouts and learning how to manage seeing paces that were not what I thought they should be, were not what I wanted them to be, and still keep momentum and positivity and belief in my ability to get to a really high level again. And so I think that period was really like the biggest challenge with that, but it's something I try to take forward off of every little injury. It's just like belief that I can get back to the place that I was, and that you need to look down and see where you are and just like accept where you are, and believe that like that gap between where you are and where you want to be is manageable. You just have to bring it down.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, the only thing I can think of right now is very random and spurred on because of our talks with Mexico. But I think, so I came off that 100K being like, I will never do 100K again. But there was a part of me that was like, but I really want to figure out like racing in Mexico. So anyone that like knows me at all is gonna be laughing at this part right now. But I ended up going back and racing in Mexico 3 more times after that. So the last year I've raced there 4 times. And I did their Solomon Golden Trail Series, their national series there this year. And with all of their top dogs and all of their gnarly trails, horrendous heat, there was something about the UTMB Puerto Vallarta day that I really liked how challenging it was. And I wanted to like have a good day with all of the elements and cross the finish line and feel like everything was pretty much firing.
Yeah.
And so I went back and back and back and back. And
did it happen?
In June, I did. Yes.
Wow.
I got 3rd at one of their, national series events. And I thought that it was an effort that on paper, nobody in the United States, most of the world, nobody would look at that result and be like, oh, that was really impressive. But for me, it was really impressive because I knew how technical that was. I knew how hot it was. I knew how good the women were. And I knew how hard it is to race internationally, and especially a place like Mexico.
Yeah,
so,
Mexico, it's so hard.
Yeah.
You're like, I am forced to drink bottled water for
eat different foods.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really proud of like kind of giving myself that little go around, and people make fun of me that I'm like this queen of Mexico or whatever for doing that, but I'm like, okay, I got it. I mean, I'll probably be back, but
that's pretty amazing. I actually kind of wanted to go back to Puerto Vallarta this year. Definitely not do the 100K.
She said that too.
Really? I wanted to do the 50K.
That's what she said.
I was not fit enough at all. So I would have killed myself, and I'm ultimately glad that I didn't, because I think I would have injured myself. But I wanted to. I know what you're saying. It was like crazy and wild. And I think the camaraderie after that race was unreal, because we were all like, whoa, what was that?
For sure. And for me too, once I went back again, I did a race that's actually happening this weekend there. It's called Mar and Mar. I highly recommend it. It's a 3-day stage race crossing the Baja Peninsula.
Wow. That's amazing.
So I did that, and I brought a friend from Santa Barbara. We were pretty much the only non-Mexicans there. And right after that event, it was like the camaraderie, like the people of Mexico that I just fell in love with, and how wild their trails are. So all of that was just like kind of addicting. I was
Did you just Google trail races in Mexico to find these?
Actually, their people that put that event on were connected with the people that put Trans Rockies on. And so I had done Trans Rockies the last 2 years, and so I had heard about it, and then I got offered a free entry, and I was like, why not?
Yeah.
I ended up not being able to finich. It was so hard.
Oh my God, really?
I literally was a walking skeleton the 3rd day, and I had to get picked up by a van, and I was like,
whoa.
Yeah,
oh my God. How many miles were each day?
Dude, I don't know. I think it was about 20 each day, but it was like 100 degrees the entire time. The last day was like sand running. It was just so hard, and I got sick and couldn't come back from it. I mean, you're camping in Mexico, you got some person making tortillas and meat, but that's all you're getting. And then if your stomach's gone, you're gone. It was just...
That's crazy.
It's wild. But I think that's what I loved about it, was how wild it was, and getting to actually go back and feel comfortable with that wild.
Yeah. Santa Barbara is such a good place to train for those trails.
Yeah, I wish it was 100 degrees hotter, but...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can come to Hawaii and train with me. We can do a training stint there. I totally agree with you about, I was in Boulder before, which is hyper, it's hyper elite. Everyone, you bump shoulders with Olympians all the time, and and then trail running, it's like a trail running hub too. So always someone to long run with, always a mob, and the runs are, always faster than I would typically run them myself. And if I was by myself, but going to Hawaii has been really nice for me, because it's, I'm back with all my high school friends who know me. It's not Kat the runner, or I've always been a runner, but as just Kat, and then also just, having space from the pressure of all what's next, being the conversation when you see someone in a grocery store, I just couldn't do that anymore. But I think, I do miss the camaraderie of a team. But I think like I can solve that for myself with, 3-week-long training blocks somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where it's just like a house of women who are all training together it doesn't have to be the same race, but like we're doing similar or the same workouts every day, and like practices at 9,
Yeah.
and we all double together.
Where,
So.
where are we going?
Let's
Freaking go. Yeah, let's go.
Let this be the
Puerto
formal
Vallarta.
announcement.
Yeah.
If you want to go and join us at a training camp, follow us and DM us on Instagram and we'll set it up.
Yeah, we're going to do it. I'm in, actually.
I actually think that would be really rad to just get a ton of different types of runners and people to get. I mean, there's tons of that already happening, but like trail specific training block. Let's do it.
Let's
That'd be
do
really
it.
cool.
Erin, do you want to come to Hawaii? I know you're track training. Both of you should come.
Next year, I'm there.
Missoula winter training camp. Help me get fit for Black Canyons. Either do Black Canyons or do the 60K.
Yeah, maybe.
It's winter there.
Yeah, winter's not great.
We can train in the heat and humidity.
Is there anywhere like cheaper than Hawaii?
Well, you have a spare bedroom, and tickets are not that expensive. If you don't go during holiday season, you can get a round trip ticket for like $300. So,
All right, intriguing.
yeah,
I
that's training camp. Nike will cover it.
Or meet halfway in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, seriously, I would.
I have been talking about getting out there, and I still haven't done it. So I need to.
Well, I'm gonna nag now.
You've run 9 trails, right?
Yeah.
So those trails are sick.
Well, I've done 9 trails, like the course, a ton of times when I was there. And then I raced it once and then fell and broke my ribs. I actually broke 2 ribs. Yeah. And then did like a Solomon camp when I was a Solomon the next couple days. And the physio was like, oh, it's like displaced. And so like in Portugal, he sent me to go because I was like, I couldn't put my pack on still. So he was like, let me look. And obviously I was like 2 weeks out of breaking the ribs, but it was displaced for like 2 weeks or like 10 days or something. And I had to like find someone in Portugal to like put it back in place.
Oh my gosh, it's just floating around in there.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, 9 trails, gnarly.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, thanks for coming on, you guys. This was fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thanks for including me.
Thanks for letting me drag Erin into this.
Yeah, I think that was great.
Dude, look how natural that was.